Hey everyone, welcome in. Pat Sports Golf here for a little bit more Memorial talk. Double dip with my boy Andy this week. Ron out for the Monday show. So if you missed that, you want to get a little bit more course deep dive, check back on the Monday show, our first look show. We kind of touched on some course details, what to expect here at the Memorial, etc. Andy, what's going on, buddy?
I should have made Ron do this show because I had to do his show. Yeah, that son of a... No, that was fun. It was good to get into it. And then, honestly, I just left. After that, I went home, called it a day, had a very nice holiday. And, yeah, here we are back at it again. The busiest Tuesday in American history is always, well, this and Labor Day, I guess. Labor Day, too, you have football, which really, really takes up a lot of time. But, no, it's, I feel caught up. I built my model. I did a little differently, too. I wanted to anchor it harder. So I built like 50% of my model just based on like we need a name for the big four, you know? Off the tee, approach, not short game, around the green, putting. Like I took the big four, 2 years worth, 12 months worth, and just put all of those in with no filters, just golf, strokes gained, off the tee, everything, 12 months. And then I used that at 50% of my model. Okay. And I said, I want to anchor it hard. You know, I didn't space them evenly. It's, I think over almost a half of it is approach, followed by off the tee, followed by around the green, followed by putting, as far as how I weight them. And then I did get granular on some stuff. I looked at some of the things we talked about, some of the key stats. We can take a look at that later. But, it is what it is. It's going to spit out the top names. It's not going to be the exact order of the betting board or the DFS salaries, but it spits out a lot of top names when you do it that way. It was still interesting seeing where some of the guys I liked showed up. Aaron Rye, higher than I thought. And, he's somebody we talked about yesterday when we were talking Ryder Cups and how he's probably on the outside looking in. He'd be like the 9th guy on the U.S. team, which is something. And yeah, he came up 11th. Sepp was in the top 20. And then, most of the other big names we talked about were there. And it's funny too. It does just feel like it's a tough course. It's going to be a decent name that wins this. Not only that, but it's a small field. There's not that many crazy names in this field for somebody wild to take this anyway.
No, it's a good point. I mean, I don't think it's a problem right? You should, if you think it's going to be that way. It's not like you have to create a model with the goal of, finding the outliers. I think, more times than not, you're going to have, especially in a 72-man field like this, you're probably going to have some of the big dogs near the top. So it should reflect that way in the model. I think you can still find some outliers, and I'm sure you did. We'll pull it up here momentarily. If you missed, again, yesterday's show, high level, Memorial, Jack's course, 72-man fields, cut. So again, one of the only 3 of the Siggies that does have a cut, top 50 in ties, or within 10 strokes of the leader after 36 holes. We'll see the weekend. So you could have a scenario where 5 to 10 guys maybe miss the cut, depending on what that looks like. But some guys will miss the cut, and that's definitely part of it too. Since the remodel, it's played harder. Last 2 years, we've had the cut at 4 over and 5 over. You've had a winning score in single digits. I would assume they probably are right in the same wheelhouse this week from what to expect. Long, but you got to be in the fairway because this is very penal rough. It is thick, and greens and reg. We looked at it yesterday using our key stats page. It's like sub 40% from the rough. So, and these are really small greens. So, this is how you land here. This is how you land with 8 under as the winning score when you have to be playing from the fairway on a almost 7,600 yard course with massively penal rough and super small greens. So putting is probably the one here. Andy's talking about the big 4 that I think matters a little bit less. I think because of the size of the greens, you just have fewer lag putts. You got to score, right? You can't be a awful putter. It's definitely a premier ball striking test. That's pretty much what you have here. And, again, it's kind of a nice little pre-major setup for these guys, right? Because this is maybe not going to have the teeth that we expect Oakmont to have, but it's going to be, this is not Craig Ranch. You know what I mean? So, good golfers going to win last year. And we've always had really fun Sundays here too. Scotty Morikawa last year, lots of different fun testing. I think we get that again.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess I didn't explain it as well as I thought I did, because you made the point for me was I didn't want a model that's going to hey, who has value at 200 to 1? Who's got
Right.
this unique skill set to really, because God, what was the one Minwoo won?
He won at Memorial Park.
Yeah, Memorial Park. It's like, hey, this is a course that has an archetype that has done well over and over and over and can win here. And I want to look for all those guys. And some of them might be 300 to 1. Some of them might be 50 to 1. Mm-hmm. I want to look for those and then dig in on those and see which one of those I want to bet, which I'll bring that up over and over because I love talking about a tournament I won money at. And Minwoo obviously fit that. It's not always going to happen, but when you have a course like that and you have an archetype and you find a bunch of those guys, you make some bets, sometimes it works out. And it did work out for us that week. The archetype here is just like a good golfer, a really good guy. There are some little things here and there. And, I know if you're doing DFS, you can't just, whoa, okay, thanks, Andy. I'll just load it up. Six guys in the 9 to 10,000. We'll see if the math works on that asshole. DFS is a different game. You do have to find, I think at that point, if you're building a player pool for DFS here, you are basically trying to find guys who are not going to bottle it. Like you're just looking for lower variance golfers here, try to make this cut and can do something, when you're trying to fill out those lineups. So look for guys who've just made the cut consistently, haven't had blow up holes, bogey avoidance, around the green prowess. I think that's where a lot of these guys are going to lose some big strokes is, just poor around the green play, poor, like you said, putting isn't huge here because these greens are so small, but around the green / short game is kind of a combo. And then, guys who are wild off the tee are going to find some bad trouble. There's water, there's sand, there's nasty rough. So, and like we said, if you end up really in the shit here, you're probably not hitting these small greens. So I think it's more of a cross off than a add up when you start doing the
it's a good way to sum,
stuff, and obviously, and I don't have to tell you guys this, you still have to weigh it against ownership. Like, hey, this guy's a cross off, but man, nobody's using him. Like, is he truly the hardest cross off? Was he the first guy off the list? So it's kind of a ticklish dance here with these small ones. I don't know, anyone who does DFS knows this. It's gotten weird with the smaller fields. It's trickier. It was one I used to always max was the Tour Championship. So I used to have, I love doing that. You had better luck and you could, it didn't take that much to get unique. But you didn't have to get crazy unique. You didn't have to find some guy, way down the board because they weren't there. You had 30 guys. You can make some goofy lineups for like 45,000 and just say like, this is it. I'm not spending the money. I never got rich on those. It was always just 4 days of like stressing. Come on, you're making money. You're at zero. You're making money, and it always end up like I maxed it out to make like $13. Good job, Andy. You just took a year of your life away at that point, though, too, through stress. So I don't know. Like the thesis here for betting and DFS is a really good golfer is probably going to win this, and there's a bunch of them. And I guess it's kind of up to you on the odds board to determine who you think he has some value. I'm not saying that you can't go further down. Like I'm going to bet Sepp Straka. I'm even at 30. I'm probably going to bet Hovland, but. It is a spot where Scotty's been good. It's a spot where other golfers who have been here, Morikawa, like we talked about, 15 to 1-ish. Like there's been some golfers that have had some success, and I don't think you can overlook course history, course success, and comp course success here either.
I think that's a good way to summarize it. I mean, that is the design of the course, right? Is Jack's intention is to have again, some of this is contrived. And yeah, like to your point, like a good golfer is going to win. Thanks, Andy. Like he wants you to use every club in the bag. You're going to see a good golfer win. I think partially, again, there's only really essentially good golfers in the field for the most part. But I do think that, you can, when you're looking from a DFS standpoint, playing the ownership game, deferring to guys that maybe have some course history here, because it's kind of like, I don't know, I would say middle of the pack, leaning towards a little bit more sticky course history than other places.
That's a really good point, I think, Ryan. If you have two guys that are like equally shitty at the bottom, and it's like, man, neither of them really match here. They're both throwouts, and you need to use one. Like whoever's played here the most, just kind of that's your coin flip tiebreaker.
Yeah, I think it's going to matter a little bit. So we did not talk about this because I discovered this yesterday in the afternoon. You'd already tapped off for the day, and I didn't want to bother you here, but I think it might be an Iowa trip day for you. I don't know if you don't have time necessarily, but our friends over at FanDuel, I think, kind of fumbled the bag a little bit with their without markets. Now, not something I typically do a ton of, but they offer both without Scotty and they offer without the big guns, which is Scotty, Xander, Morikawa, and Justin Thomas this week. And those markets still are priced very much within reason of where full field markets are on some of these guys. Yesterday, it was even worse. I don't know what happened. There are places where you can get the same number on a guy in the without shuffler market, who is your defending champ, which is not uncommon for Scotty to be the defending champ somewhere. But if you have access to FanDuel, they do a great job of hiding it. You cannot click PGA Tour. You got to click golf, select the Memorial, and then you'll see the without shuffler, without the big guns market. I think they actually spell the guys' names out for you too. But from an outright betting standpoint, it's a pretty good market to get into this week, and that's where I made all my bets in this week, which is, I know, a little challenging, but FanDuel at least is a book where, if you have domestics, you have FanDuel right there. I don't think, other than New Hampshire, I think New Hampshire is the only one that has like their DraftKings only. They have this weird deal.
Yeah, live free or die my ass.
It's not New Hampshire. We just got DraftKings. They got an empire going there. So yeah, check it out. Definitely worth looking at this week.
This is FanDuel golf betting markets are amazing.
Yeah,
the is PointsBet even a book anymore?
It's not. It's it is. Fanatics.
It's Fanatics.
Yeah.
PointsBet used to be just the nut low. I'm trying to find the actual markets for the week. It would take me, it's the same problem every week. I was trying to dig into it for something. Like, how do I forget how to do this every week? But yeah, most of those, the user interfaces are kind of rough when it comes to certain sports that aren't just football. But that's interesting. Yeah, if you guys have FanDuel and you guys make numbers, go look into that. Go look into those. Take out your, take out the prices and the win equity for those four and see where you come up with. Ryan's making it sound like there's some pretty good prices.
Yeah, yesterday we talked. I only made one bet when we met yesterday on Monday morning. I bet Keegan originally at 55, which is a good number, and it was better than other stuff. But there are books out there. He laughs at me, my Keegan bet, which I've not been on Keegan blindly of late. I haven't bet Keegan in a while.
No, let's just bet him at the toughest course with the signature field.
He finished 8th at the PGA. He's in the mix. Hits it long and straight. Got that high ball.
Bet him top 20 then.
Well, I got him without the big four. So, you come in 5th in cash for 40 to 1.
When he comes in 5th and Sep won, it's not going to work.
No, I know that's the cost of doing business here, but
yeah,
Rivers had him. The best number you could find on Rivers was 35 for Keegan. There are probably 50s, 55 still out there. Again, full fields, but to get a 40 on Keegan, which is a better number than Rivers at 35 without Scotty, Xander, Colin, and JT, that's a no-brainer, right? So yes, you're still going to be able to find 50s on Keegan. You're going to be able to find some, bigger numbers there than some of the ones I'm referencing. But
I can live with that. I can live with that without the big guns.
Yeah. So I did most of my swimming there. Let's pull up your model before we get into it. You've not made any bets. You've just been kind of toying around these handful of guys still.
Yeah, it's still kind of Like, do I want to bet one of the big names? Do I want to bet somebody low on the board and take a stand on one person or two golfers down there? And also, I was, when we did the show yesterday, I didn't have bookmaker odds. I wanted that as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's take a look at the model that you did. We ran through this, our course key stats page here yesterday on the Monday show. This is available here in the tool section. Just go to the course database. You get this little drop down. You can actually look at any course. You get a sense of how it's going to play. You can get into some of these other things that'll help lead you to building or looking at some ways to use filters through the rabbit hole to get a sense of what we're looking at. I think it's a great week to look at difficult ball striking, because you can see here, very difficult on approach. It is difficult to gain off the tee, even though we have wide fairways. The rough is long and really penal if you miss, because you can see here, high miss fairway penalty, high rough penalty. Really, everything is difficult outside of the putting stuff, right? So you get into your putting stuff is pretty average, but everything around the green, very difficult. Greens and reg, especially from the rough, which is reflected in the fairway and rough penalty. This is all there for you. Lays out some corollary courses. To Andy's point, if you wanted to look both at specific, Muirfield Village course history, along with some of the other courses that we think lay out similarly, you could do that here as well. Your whole layout is basically, over par, other than your par fives, which are difficult. And you get a sense of, I think these course metric numbers are just a great way to look at some stuff here too. We have a facelift coming down here for past leaderboards. This is going to actually have strokes gain data here very, very, very soon. So you want to actually not just see who won and who shot what. You'll be able to see who gained and who gained where, which I think is going to be an awesome addition as well. So let's look at Andy's model. Go in here, view expert rankings, and pull some other folks in the industry as well. See Andy Lack from Inside Sports Network. His guy, Scuba Steve, he's got his model in here as well. You got something from me, John Hasselbauer, PGA Tout. Let's see here. You're down here because this is going to be your old model, right?
No, it's brand new.
Where is it? Where did I miss it? Am I missing you? Did you do it today? Let me refresh this.
Yeah.
You got your Cool Ranch model on. You can turn that off, man.
I did. I turned that off. That's what I'm saying. You need to refresh.
Okay.
Mine should be at the very top.
That's my bad.
Should be the only one.
Here we go.
Yeah, I turned off Cool Ranch. I turned off some of the old ones. For sure.
Hennessy down here with his Masters amateur hour. All right. Memorial by my friend Andy Molitor. All right. Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Tommy Fleetwood. So, again, if, we're looking by salary, you can see a little bit. This is a great way to do so. See JT not as favorable in your model here. Tommy a little bit further down, and he's popping. So this is, another way to kind of back end look at how things are ranked. Morikawa, Coco is playing really good golf.
Well, and I think part of Justin Thomas is I used just straight up strokes gained, no filters for a year, and you look what his off the tee was for the past year.
Spray and pray.
Hideki spraying a little bit.
Yeah, Hideki, Cantley, Henley, Hovland, Ludwig. Okay, no real surprises. Ordering, to your point, probably a little bit different. There's Rye that jumps out in terms of DraftKings scoring. Berger, Lowry, Sanjay, right? These are this handful here, this stretch of guys. These guys keep it in play off the tee, which I think is going to matter here this week. This is a spot where you're really dead. It's almost impossible for you to make a birdie coming out of the rough here. It's very, very, very difficult. Your scoring opportunities are definitely coming from the fairway. So that's kind of where the stretch is. Big Tone playing a little bit better as of late. Spawn, Keegs, and Pendrith rounding out the top 20. Okay. Let's look at your little buckets here.
So like I said, those first four, no filters, 12 months. So I took half the model, 50% of my weighting, and put it into just 12 months form. 15%, so I guess 30% off the tee, 40% approach, 20% around the green, 10% putting, if you split that up on how I split it. So obviously those are half in the actual model. And then some of the stuff we did yesterday when we started to dig into, rabbit hole data, I guess I went with when it's long or difficult, I usually include average. So I just want to suss out the short courses.
Yep.
So
Or the really
I went
easy
with
courses. I get it.
I went for 2 years of took out all the short courses and very short courses, took out all the easy and very easy scoring conditions. And that was it. That was it for the filtering. And then we looked at bogey avoidance, which obviously we've talked about. That's huge. The guys who are going to make it happen here are able to survive the holes that they have to survive. Greens and regulation, which is just double counting approach, but I'm fine double counting approach because honestly, I probably should have weighted that heavier in the first part of it. Greens and regulation is one of the only predictive measures, and it's still pretty far down there because it's hard to predict what's going to happen in a field of 75 to 150 golfers at all times. A little bit of scrambling, you see that? A little bit of scrambling. A little bit of putting. That putting does have an extra filter. That has none of the other filters. That is strictly just 2 years putting on bent grass, guys. Just show me you can do it on the pure stuff. And then total driving, which I think is important here too, because a lot of people are going to look at distance. Distance is going to matter here. But distance without accuracy is the same as hitting it short. You'd almost rather be 250 out than 175 from the deep stuff. I think those are probably about the same if you ended up looking at like a big sample of those, the proximity on those groups of approach shots. So total driving I went with, which for anyone who doesn't know is just kind of a chintzy thing. It takes your rank at driving distance and your rank in driving accuracy and gives you an average. So you lose a little context for some of the spacing, but it still shows you who doesn't have one or the other, who has enough of both to be high enough in these rankings.
Yeah, flawed stat, but not a useless stat, right? Like, and it matters here, right? We do want both. We need to capture both. Jordan Spieth third in total driving is something that I was not prepared for, but speaks to the fact that the Jordan Spieth demise is
golfer right now.
He's still been getting. So I'm saying, like, his, people are talking to like he's completely dead. Like, he's playing some decent golf, right? Like, he just set this unsustainable rate for himself coming out, at like 20, 21 years old, but not winning a lot, but still competitive. I think bogey avoidance is a great look this week too. And you broke it down to like your point, kind of taking out the easy, very easy, very short courses is a great way to do so. I could not agree more. If you're double counting anything, approach is the way to do it. And scrambling, lots of different ways to account for around the green. You do have both, around the green and scrambling, which has a putting element here. So, technically do have, a hand scrambling, putting on bent, and then just kind of rolling 12 months putting. But again, that's the right way to do it. You can hark back to the discussion I had with Jordan Spieth around the putting splits on surfaces versus, flat putting. I think this does a good job at capturing all of that. So yeah, good. Well thought out, good model. Let's see who's really bad on your model that pops here.
Brant Snedeker probably not winning this thing.
2026 President's Cup captain, not in line to get it done here this week with a sponsors exemption. Adam Hadwin, who very, very much in the mix on Sunday afternoon here last year, has not played really good golf outside of that for the most part, but he very much was in the mix.
Speaking of people who've won tournaments and played really good golf over the course of small chunks of the last couple of years, Matthew Pavon and Nick Dunlap. I mean, kind of the same boat. Like, these guys are winners, and they're not playing
Cam Davis
right now.
Yeah,
that's true. Max Homa.
Homa's coming back.
So here's the thing. I used a 2-year sample. Max Homa looks pretty bad. This is why it's fun to pick through this, looking at your data and how you set it up, and knowing like, well, Max Homa, huh? I don't know if I'm betting him here. I don't know if it's a great setup for him, but yeah, he's one you do have to look at a shorter sample size because he is turning a bit of a corner here. And you look at his 7,500 there, he's going to be what, 200 to 1? Maybe not that big. 185 at bookmaker. Maybe Max Homa's a nice top 20 bet if you really do believe in the the homosance.
Nicely done. I look at that. I mean, this is painful, right? Last 6 months, you're not going to get enough of it. Small sample last month. There's at least some more green in here. This too is less bright red than it's
Looks
been.
like a goddamn Rothko in here. It's just nothing but red.
It's rough. Let me back out. This is his last little stretch. Still not great, but at least showing a pulse. Let's see his memorial history.
See,
it's been competitive.
It's been a minute. Oh, so along with my Tommy top 10, top 20, which just feels like auto bets that you have to make it every tournament he plays in now.
Yeah.
Homa top 20. I might jot that down. That's interesting.
Been competitive. T6, T5, T22 last 3 times out. New guy in the bag. The guy's now in the bag of Colin Morikawa. Joey Grenier, who is, Morikawa's also had a pretty nice history here. We went into that a little bit yesterday. But yeah, I mean, still not great for Max. Less bright red. We are at least trending positively. Like you said, I agree with you. Probably not a threat to win. Had himself a pretty poor Sunday at Quail, which kind of cost him. This looks way worse than it felt for the first 3 rounds. But hey, turns out golf tournaments are 4 rounds. You got to put it together for all 4 days. This is not live. So here we are. Yeah, this is a solid model here. It's no one else. This is another one that jumps out to me. That long term is not great. I think Fitz did something with his swing. I noticed it a little bit at the PGA because we got to see him more on TV than we did before. I do not have a trained swing eye, but it felt like really, really noticeable to me with kind of what he was doing at the top of his swing. And they had a little bit of Scheffler in the front foot coming through. And Fitz is another guy that is both, again, playing a little bit better and has some pretty delightful Muirfield Village course history. Most of the stuff here from Fitz has been, I mean, if we go last 12 months, I mean, this is not a past major champion layout here, but this is who he's been. But here we go. Last 12. Whoop, something happened and matches the eye test. And then when we go down here, again, TA, PGA, competitive at the Truist, was apparently really frustrated about his RBC Heritage showing. But then we go here, and this is pretty nice. He was struggling a little bit last year, and then came here in top 5. T9 the year before. There's a 3 in here as well. So the guy that's come here has some good juju and seems to have fixed something a little bit. Matt Fitzpatrick made my card in the without market at 35-1.
I want to get to Maddie's question here in a second, but something I'm looking for too is like we talk about course history. Course history and course success is not 100% the golfer, and because it just made you made an interesting point because you're talking caddies. JJ Morikawa's former caddy knows this place well, and currently isn't really on the bag for anybody. I think he helped Matt Wallace out for a week. But he said, like, I'm looking for a long-term spot. It'll be interesting to see if his name pops up. I would think it'd be today. Somebody would be, it's a big enough caddy name would be like, hey, he's, he's in Dublin, guys. He's on the bag for somebody. That'd be interesting. If it was somebody who I was borderline or thinking about, that would be a nice little bump because of the success he's had here with Colin and just the level of caddy he is. Matty D asks thoughts on McIntyre and Novak, both debutantes, which answering the question before I finish it, that's the biggest knock I think on both of them. But they do look solid in models. And he says, appreciate all the tools and insights, which I appreciate you saying so much. Yeah, McIntyre. It depends how you feel about him, but obviously he modeled out well for me. And a lot of it is just form. It's tough because, like you said, he's a debutante, isn't the strongest off the tee player, but I don't think he's going to – that total driving number, if you look at his off the tee strokes gained, he manages it. It's not like he's short and wild.
The other important context piece for this is that this is a 72-man field.
Yeah.
This is relative to the field. That doesn't necessarily mean that even though he's, on the wrong side of average here, that is necessarily bad, because it is weighted against 72 or 71 of the other best.
Really good golfers, yes.
Right. So not necessarily something that would be, a name to cross off. It looked good form, right? Showed up well. Last week at a course that I wouldn't necessarily, another course where accuracy off the tee was really important. So no problem with Bobby Mack. Impossible to ignore what Novak is doing right now. Also modeled well. They're right next to each other in Andy's model, 22 and 23. Yeah. Anything here with rolling form for Novak is going to be awesome. He is absolutely fantastic around the greens. And that shows here as well. And that is going to matter this week. Inevitable to miss greens. So you want to have a guy that can be able to get himself up and down. Same thing. He is towards the bottom, almost the bottom in total driving, similar sense. But again, showed up last week at a spot where accuracy was important and very much was in the mix. It finished T11, doesn't bogey the 18th. He's T6. So we had a really solid week again last week. So no problem with either of those guys. And obviously they're coming off of, solid finishes. I believe they were both T11 last week at Colonial. So no problem with either of them, price adjusted, and especially swimming in this market that I'm talking about here without the big guns. You very much would not catch me off guard to see either Novak or Bobby Mack right there in the mix.
Yeah, I don't think I can bet them straight up is the answer, but I'm kind of on the same boat as you. It's like, if you find a good enough price without the big guns, if you find a good enough price in them top 10, top 20, I think that's definitely a look. I bet Novak last week. I like Novak a lot. I think he's he's just it feels like he's just automatic to win a fall event, doesn't it?
Yes.
Like he's going to play some of the fall events and he's just going to win one. And it might be sooner than that. It might be, the pre-fall fall events in Detroit, Minneapolis, Wyndham, maybe something like that. It feels like he's due to win one. It's hard to say it's going to be Memorial. Like that's a tough one for him to break through this year with, but love him. And I faded Bobby Mack a lot early on when he first came over. I don't anymore.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
That's a good way to put it, though.
Yeah, he was a little hit and miss for me. Like he was a little sporadic. He's been much more consistent. I just don't see myself. I don't see myself as an old Scottish caricature betting either of those like at 70 or 80 to 1 just to win the tournament. I like him in the derivatives, like you said.
Yeah, we also have Criminal in the chat referencing Harris English. Harris English here, 48th in your models, already won on a similar setup this year. Big boy golf course.
Unmodelable, though. Harris English can just show up and play really good golf, and he has in the past.
The putter does so much of the heavy lifting, right? So that's why he rarely models well, because a lot of this, without even, 10th in putting. I'm sure when we get over here, so 6th in putting, scrambling gets pulled up because of the putting, right? So these things are tough to account for because he's just far less consistent approach wise. But yeah, impossible to argue another guy that's playing really good golf. Let's look at Harris English real quick.
Yeah, and that's been, like you said, that's the reason I'm avoiding him. It's just it's a hard event for somebody to really pull through with the putter.
Yeah, positive on Bent, obviously gets off to a good start. So maybe an early round situation, probably a cut maker, in this field here based off of some of these trends you see here. Difficult and very difficult scoring conditions are where he's at his best. He's not in a spot where you want to get him in a runaway birdie fest. Seems to be up for better challenges, ideally weaker fields, but, can be super competitive. And here we are again, by far his best over the last calendar year on very long golf courses, which is what we have here. The problem for me is this approach stuff is far less consistent, but you can see here in the short term, ball striking numbers are pretty solid. 11th the truest, obviously top 2, posted a number on Sunday and let the field kind of come back to him, and that worked. And then, 53 at the Schwab, where he was pretty popular. So from a DFS standpoint, I think he might be interesting because I think he burned people last week. I think people were on, posted in English. I think we're two of the most popular names shouted last week. So, and surprisingly lost a ton of strokes putting, which is really weird for him. So, mostly see pretty sizable amounts of green. Let's look at his Memorial history here. Missed the kind of rotating, got off to a good start here. T18, T13, and has not really shown over the last couple of years post Reno. But again, to Andy's point, hard to model, hard to make sense of it because he just show up and
and here's the thing, Criminal. I think you're on the right path though. I don't like him as like a top 20, top 30 kind of bet. Like, he feels like if he wins, it is because of, his putting is in his short game, do what they always do, but he finds some outlier approach play. And if he finds outlier approach play and he's putting like he always does, he's going to win or he's going to be in the top 5. Like it doesn't feel like a take it, pump the brakes on this guy and go low risk, bet him at, the top 30 at like plus 100 or something like that. This is bet him to win, bet him to top 5. It's kind of an all or nothing. It feels like they're different risk profiles for some of these golfers. And if he plays well enough, it's not like, hey, Harris English had a nice week and he T17, good job. It's like Harris English was in the second to last group on Sunday.
Yeah.
Harris English misses the cut. It feels very bimodal,
English, Bobby Mack, Novak that we've all discussed here in the last couple of minutes, ranging between plus 130, plus 150 to top 20 with ties. Just looking at FanDuel. And then also they're all in the 45 to 55 range in the without big guns market from an outright standpoint. So, tolerable way to get there. And again, recent form too. So, ideally sometimes we'll prioritize, and at least I will, overall course fit versus your recent form. But I think, anytime you have recent form as well, you'd love to see that. Just guys having a little bit of confidence because they're playing well, which could be the case for some of the guys that we saw pop a little bit last week. So kind of continuing to scroll backwards here. Bud Cauley continues to play really good golf. Don't know what to do with his fit here. Davis Thompson's been a disappointment. I thought he could take a step this year. Maybe he still does. But, good around the green player. Putter can be, sometimes his undoing. Here you see not great from putting in your splits. Bogey avoidance. Those are, things that make me a little bit nervous here. So there's Justin Thomas, like you said, buried a little bit relative to the field. Yeah, Sepp, it's impossible to argue. I mean, the ball striking has been electric. He's just really hard to think that he's, again, not going to be in the mix. He is even odds, plus 100 to finish top 20 in ties here. And then again, if you want to find him in the without market too, I think he's right around 35 with some of the other guys, 30, 35 with other guys I've mentioned earlier. I think he's very much in play. Good golfer.
So Sepp and Victor, 30 to 40, somewhere in there. I'm betting those guys. Shorter than that, I'm just not interested in betting Scheffler at 250. Xander, some of the shine's off right now. I don't think I can, even at 20. JT, I don't love on this course, even with his better putting right now. I don't think that's going to carry him through. Not betting him at 20. Morikawa's price is unpalatable. Cantlay doesn't win. Fleetwood doesn't win. Corey Connors is always a little too high for my liking. So the rest of that range there, it leaves you with how much are we taking into account Luda's current form compared to I can bet him at 30 to 1 or better. Like in that range of people, I trust him at a course like this.
1,000%.
Hit the ball with distance and accuracy, set himself up to score. Not, obviously everyone remembers him having a blow up hole in Augusta, but I just don't think that's a big part of his bag. It's just compared to Corey Connors or Ludwig Abear for about the same price.
Yeah, I mean, I bet Connors, but I bet him in the without other guys market because it just feels like Corey Connors fits him so well. He's got so many top fives. I mean, he's hit 3 really events this year where he's entered on Sunday with a legit chance to win. API, which is a very similar test long, penal rough. Very much in the mix there. The players, he had a great shot. And there's places that demand accuracy off the tee, and he had a legit shot at the Masters. I guess you could say. I mean, he was right there. It definitely felt like a 2-dog race, but it was definitely like O'Connor's isn't going to separate, and he didn't. But he's just had a bunch of top 5s and top 10s this year. His ball striking, you look over the last 3 months, Scheffler 1, Connors 2. He's ahead of Rory. He's ahead of Sepp.
Yeah.
He's actually gaining on the field, both around the green and putting this year. Barely, but for him, that's kind of all we want when the ball striking has been this good. So
you know where I want to bet him?
Top 5, top 20, top 10
next week.
Yeah, I get it. I was worried about the pressure of the Canadian on him.
So I think Nick Taylor winning one kind of takes a little of that pressure off. Like it's not like, hey, Canadian hasn't won this since before we were still a colony. That helps
sometimes when it means so much that sometimes you can get into your own head a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I like him at the U.S. Open. I'll probably bet him. I don't know that I'll bet him to win the U.S. Open, but I'm going to bet him to play well at that place that looks like, if you're not from the fairway, you're dead. And he's in the fairway all the time off the tee. It's massive. And he doesn't do it by hemorrhaging distance, right? So, he's not a super exciting guy in a full field outright, but again, I'm pulling out some of the guys that would make me nervous, and I think he could be really, really competitive here and shown up here a little bit. So I'm with you on the Ludwig thing. I thought about it long and hard yesterday before I even found this FanDuel mistake, because I could see 25s and 28s. Now, if we can touch 30, it's just a blimp in time right over the long haul for looking at Ludwig for who he is, what his career is, versus getting kind of tied up in really short-term form, which hasn't been great. This feels like one of these tracks again that Ludwig will just always come. Torrey, Bay Hill, Muirfield Village, like he's going to show up, and these are going to be Ludwig courses for the duration of his career. So he's the one that I'm considering making a play straight up at close to 30 if I can find that here for myself. So yeah, I think it's a good look, to be honest. And part of that's just I like him. I think he's just another guy that we want to bet on the come. Like he's ascending to that tier, and is a great course fit. So he's been a little bit inaccurate off the tee, which is kind of the makeup was like, hey, long and straight, and then the approach game hasn't been great either. So that's my fear.
Yeah, I'm still taking him just because I think his
30s
peak. His peak is, hey, I'm better than the 6 guys in front of me, between me and more than 6. It's like 8 guys between him and Scotty. I'm better than those golfers when I'm playing good enough, and you're getting a big number. And then that kind of leads me to the Aaron Rai problem. Where do we do with this guy? About 55, 57 on Bookmaker I'm seeing. I'm awful interested in here. I kind of feel like I'm going against my own advice. It's hard for me to picture him out-dueling some of the biggest names here. At least with Sepp, I have some win equity. With Hovland, I have some win equity. Yeah, it's Aaron Rai.
Couldn't close in Mexico.
That's well in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's another, Corey Connors light. He's going to be in position off the tee. Probably won't play himself out of it. Is he winning? That's a hard sell for me. Even at these longer numbers, I see probably Chris like almost 58.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a play for me, but I would understand why someone would want to make a finishing position bet there, but I don't see it. At least like even Spawn, who's right there, similar game. At least has got himself had to feel some of that smoke on Sunday at the Players to force the playoff late. Like I feel a little bit better about that even than I do about what we've seen in Rye when it's tight at the end.
It's funny too. I looked at Spawn pretty hard, but it's another one where it's like, hey, if I'm betting Spawn, I'm probably betting him top 10.
Yeah. I was on the Spawn.
All right. Yeah. I guess the card is probably Hovland, Abear, Straka, very European. And then Aaron Rai, top 10, Homa, top 20. I'll go shop those prices, make sure I'm not saying something I don't really want. But, let's see, top 20 at the Memorial for Mr. Homa. It's got to start with a 2, right? Oh, when you
Close,
type in
probably.
Homa, 225, and this is dead heat number.
Yeah, plus 160 in ties on FanDuel. I'm seeing you might find a better one than that since there are more books now that offer with ties, which is great. Absolutely love that from a finishing position standpoint. So, yeah, don't hate that. I'm going to continue to flirt with Ludwig in just straight up markets, especially if it's going to tickle 30. 30 is a number I will not pass on that number. I think I would have so much FOMO if he's in contention and there were 30s on him in a small field event that fits him so well. But in the without markets, I went Hovland 25, Connors 25, Fitz 35, and Keegan 40. I flirted with Finau. It's playing pretty well. But yeah, I just don't trust Big Tone.
No. Okay. Yeah, I think spot. So it's chopped. It's a dead heat number, but 3-1 to top 10 for JJ Spawn is another one I like. Like you said, he's danced with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
I will. I'll play him
man.
again too. I'll play him again to play well. Same thing with Rye. Like I'll play him to play well. I don't know if I trust either of those guys to win. And then the Homa top 20 price is just fun because it's coming around. I'd like to ride that train.
Yeah.
It's like the one of my favorite crap stealers will always say that to somebody who bets a number after it's hit. Like, oh, 6, pay the 6. And then someone will put money on it and they'll say, pays a lot better if you bet it before we roll it, sir. And it's the same thing. You want to get ahead of some of these guys. If you do think someone's ascending back into form for whatever reason, mental health, new caddy, new approach, just maybe getting over an injury, like some of those guys, the prices are not going to reflect probably what their true odds are to perform at a certain level. And I think Homa's probably there right now.
Yeah, and that's a great way to summarize. That's my Fitz handicap here as well, right? We have a new caddy.
Yeah,
we have
exactly.
a course he really likes. I visually am seeing something that looks different, and it's reflected in the recent results. So, it feels like if you look at long-term stuff, he's not going to model well, but I feel like something's happening here. And, this is a guy that, again, won the U.S. Open.
It helps. It helps to watch golf. That's why we bitch. Peacock, CBS, ESPN, show more golf shots. That's why we'd like to watch these golfers play. It makes this more easy. It makes this more entertaining. It gives us more information. I don't know. Any other thoughts on Memorial? Yes, it does.
Yeah. No, DFS, a one and done. What are your one and done thoughts this week? It's a big prize pool, obviously. One of the, second to last Siggy. We obviously have 2 majors pending, and the playoffs and stuff. Definitely a big gun week for sure.
It's a big gun week. I don't think you go too far beyond the top 10. It depends who you have left, though. We're getting into June almost. Like you might not have some of these big names. You might.
I don't have a lot of big names left, to be honest. I mean, I'm shot my shot.
I'm kind of saving some for a few spots, and maybe you're looking for somebody who's a strong top 5 contender. Someone who's not going to piss this tournament down their leg if they don't win on the top. And I mean, start looking at those guys in that top 10. Schauffele, Thomas, Morikawa, Cantlay, Abear, Fleetwood, Connors, Matsuyama, Hovland, even like Berger, Spieth, Lowry, Straka, Siwoo. Out of those names, whose distribution of results is top heavy compared to, they win, they top 40, they get second or they miss the cut. There's some of those guys who are just a little more scattershot. Some are a little more consistent. That's a fun one. Let's pull up the rabbit hole real quick.
Yeah, it's a great way to use it, I think, actually.
This is one thing I do like looking at quite a bit. Pull up the finishing position menu, obviously. We'll do one more thing for I got time. I got a meeting in 10, but just finishing position.
What time frame do you typically look at?
I don't know. Like, you can do whatever you want here. Let's look at a year or two. I go between 12, 18, and 24 months when I'm looking at this. Sometimes I look at all of it. And sometimes I do like to click average here because otherwise it's just a rank and you don't see how much better Scotty is than everyone. But for the podcast listeners, on the main rabbit hole, finish position, it'll, you pick a sample size, you filter it if you want. We aren't filtering this at all. It's just like Scotty Scheffler, and fun trivia question with yourself since you can't see the screen. Scotty Scheffler has 19 PGA starts in the last 12 months. What is his average finish position? Because it's kind of sick.
It's,
think
and
about
this,
that for a second.
this you pull out like the U.S. Open where he was like the only time where he was like outside the top 40, and this is probably pretty minuscule. It's just wild.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, even with a couple stinkers, 9.3. His average finish is a top 10, which is sick. He wins 31% of the just like he hasn't missed a cut in any of those. Top 40ing 97% of the time, 94.7% of the time, which is really something. So this is one maybe let's sort by top 10. You know, we're looking for some top 10 money here. Let's look at some of those names and see who's done that at an outside clip besides Scotty Scheffler. Xander has played very well. You know,
look at that teardrop though. I mean, this is where average really
sick.
reflects. It's crazy.
So, yeah, Scotty's at 73%. The next three golfers are all around 44, which is just obscene. And that's, you know, a couple names that aren't names that I list off. Russell Henley, Corey Connors.
Connors, I think, is a great option this week.
If you want to go a little further down the board, but you're not going crazy. Yep. But Corey Connors, Russell Henley, Shane Lowry, they finish high quite often.
Mav's made 28 starts, the biggest sample in this pocket, and he's, 32% has been inside the top 10. So he's, again, Ryder Cup coming his way. He's been in the mix.
I might as well just screenshot this, what we're doing right now for the one and done article, because that is going to be like, hey, pick somebody in the top 5 that you love, or if you want to get weird, basically like, and it's not even weird, not like Russell Henley is, Carl Phillips. It's a very much known quantity, great ball strikers, but Henley, Connors, Lowry, McNeely, like there's what you need to do if you want to get weird with it.
Yep. Yeah, the Scotty thing is pretty insane. But yeah, Connor's another one. I mean, he's not 28, but 23. Big sample of events, and almost half the time in the last year he's been inside the top 10. So you got that big 0 in the win column. The top 5 percentage is even small, but he's just kind of make the cut, keep himself in play, and sometimes yes, we want the win. But this signature event money towards the top and the top 10 is nice this week too. You just happen to have a popular guy, not make his hay. Like last week, Spieth was really popular and ended up having an okay week. But it's like if you used a punt, like I used Spawn and got more money using Spawn than I would have
Novak. Yeah.
So great call. All right.
Honestly thought he was going to win for a while there. I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. He looked really good. So Rio too. Jesus. We had some golfers play pretty well.
Yeah. Some chasers. That's all we need. So good stuff.
All right. Let's call it. I enjoyed our time. If you guys have anything else, obviously you can leave comments on the YouTube. We get notifications for that. Our Twitter is always around. We'll see you on the site or in the Discord if you are a member. If you're not, obviously take advantage of the MGM deal, the Drafters deal. We've gone over those multiple times. If you have questions on those, hit us up. Otherwise, that stuff is right on the main page. There's explanatory articles right on betsfortsgolf.com. Take a look at those. You can get yourself a full year membership, which is a $250 value for $10 if you find a way to get a new BetMGM account. We'll see you guys.